this video is about telling the story of your career, and you know, Dennis and I have been working together for about a decade now. But when I came back from America and started to work with Dennis, he made me write out a description, sort of a paragraph of who I was and what I was doing, and it was really tough. It was difficult because I'd moved to America to support my wife's career, and so there was kind of a jump that I needed to explain, and it took me a while to find words to explain it, and anyway, so we went around that a fair few times before I could say, look, you know, I'm an experienced general manager who moved to America for their wife's career and transitioned to consulting at that point. And once I was comfortable with it, everybody else got comfortable with it. But until I was comfortable saying it and describing it, it remained sort of a black hole for people. And so, you know, many people we talk to have those sorts of gaps in their resume, and they're not sure how to navigate them. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that in this video.
Yeah, look, I think that's a very good point, Charles. I've found it very useful over time to be able to describe who I am and what I bring in 4 or 5 sentences. And it runs something like this. I'm a chemical engineer who made sugar for the early part of his life, lived in Australia and New Zealand, got an MBA from Stanford, joined McKinsey, worked in Australia, Toronto, London, got seduced by a client, and then got fired by the same client, and found myself out of work in London in the early 80s. Not knowing what to do, because never in my entire life had I ever written a resume, or had I really ever thought about what it was I was doing, other than whatever I was doing at a particular point in time, doing it particularly well.
Yeah.
I had the good fortune to have someone do for me what we've tried to do for other people over time. He was a man called Jim Fisher, who worked for a company called TASA. And he asked me the 4 questions that I mentioned in a previous episode of this series. What am I good at? What do I enjoy? What are you poor at? What do you dislike? And he took me round and round that circle over a period of about 6 weeks, until I eventually came back and said, look, I'm good at taking complex things and simplifying them. And I gave him some examples of that. I'm persuasive. I have no difficulty having people follow me. And we went through that, and I said, I hate detail, and if you give me something to focus on that's longer than about 3 months, I get really bored. And so he looked at me and said, well, so why are you looking to do a line job? Why don't you go back into consulting? And I thought, oh wow, why didn't I think of that? And I went into the search industry from a strategy consultant. And that led me back eventually to Australia to open the Australian operation of a global firm, and then ultimately into my own business, not as a search consultant, but as in an advisory role. That's it in a nutshell. Now, people can relate to that.
Yeah, and what and it's human, and it's not. It's okay that things have gone wrong. You know, I mean, I think one of the real stresses that we have when we're out of work is to try and sound perfect, and try to sound. But I think it's okay to be human. It's okay to say, you know, I've tried 3 things in my life, and you know, the first 2 worked really well, and then the third one worked really badly, and now I'm resetting, or to say, you know, I had a great early career, and then I spent my time doing some broadening assignments.
You're allowed to make mistakes.
Yeah.
The important thing is that you learn from them and you don't make the same mistake twice.
Yeah, and so what you've heard from us, we don't think you can get there except through practice. You know, it took us literally hundreds and hundreds of tries, being on video, taking it down, writing it out, redoing it, before we could tell a decent story about ourselves, and you might well say we still suck at it, but at least you get a sense of who we are and where we're coming from with our introductions. And what we do is we challenge you to have a crack yourself in front of the mirror or in front of somebody who cares for you, who can give you some decent feedback. Because you know, that thing about making a good first impression and having a clear proposition and being able to tell a bit of a story, that's all really important. And it's something you can practice, and it's something we recommend you practice a lot of different times in a lot of different ways, because it's an important part of both getting ready for the really important meetings you're going to have, but also informing your network of where you're up to. There's nothing easier than to say to people, can you test something for me? Can you give me some feedback? Everybody feels comfortable with that sort of approach. So we recommend you just practice a lot of times. Who am I? Where have I come from? Where am I going from? To how have I created value? Hope that's helpful. Thanks.